How's it going? It's Matt, Code Tech and Tutorials. Another video in the car, following up, from my previous one, and another topic I want to talk about that seems to confuse a lot of people. You see a lot of different terms for the job description or for the profession of a software developer, software engineer, software lead, software tech lead, software everything. I just want to clarify what some of them sort of mean, at least to me, as far as I can best tell. And correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm always open to learn more. And anybody that watches this channel is probably looking to learn more too, because that's kind of what this is all about. I'm riffing here, so I'm not looking up sources and putting this together. If I really butcher something that badly, sorry. I'll try to correct it if it's that bad, but for the most part, we're just going with it here. So I'm going to touch a few definitions specifically: software engineer, software designer, software developer. Those three are the ones you hear most. I guess architect is in there too. You hear architect a lot. I guess there's always the web techs thrown in there too. Like you'll see a web stack engineer and full stack engineer, front end designer, things along that nature. So, okay, well, typically, I feel like if you're labeled an engineer, if you have engineer or architect, that means you are building new technologies and tools from the ground up, which means you're coming up with your own data structures, putting them together, interfacing them. That, to me, is more along the engineering, architecting. That is really difficult. It's way more difficult than, say, what a software designer would do. A software designer would be doing something more along the lines of using tools that are already built and then kind of just putting them together to make another new thing or an interface to something. So that way, you're using technologies and other tools that people have already built and tested, and you're just hooking them up, basically. And that is the easiest way to make software, and it's probably the best way to make software. Don't be mistaken. Because engineering and architecting, well, I guess you could say you're architecting if you're using tools too. But if you're engineering tools, this just goes to show that these titles really don't mean anything. You really have to see a list of credentials and things someone's worked on to really understand what they're good at. These titles are hard to really get a read on about what they really mean. But this is just kind of also what I feel they should mean. So if someone is designing something, they're often just coming up with how it should work and then connecting pieces in where it fits. Almost like Legos. So that's really easy with web development. I'm sure a lot of you already kind of know. You can get frameworks and just hook up things and put your own data in, and it just works. And it's like, hey, I'm a software developer now. And that's kind of true, you are. It's not to say that that's easy. A lot of that stuff is still quite difficult. It takes a lot of knowledge to know what you need to do next. And you can follow tutorials only so far before you get to an area where you're like, well, I can't find the answer to this question. What do I do? And that's where things get more difficult and is often the limit for software developers, because the next step is engineering your own solutions. And that is way harder, way harder. I know I've already said that, but it is a whole nother realm. Like, to hook up a bunch of things that are already built, you basically just need to follow the guides, follow the directions, and just kind of follow a list of things to do, and you can pretty much get things done that way. But when you're engineering, there's nothing like that. You can find occasional help. Yeah, you can often find documentation on how these things work, but putting them together in the correct way is totally up to you. Managing how the memory works is totally up to you. managing memory in a way where an operating system can page it properly is up to you. And if you mess it up, no one's really going to tell you. People are just going to get crashes, and they're going to get stack overflows and stuff. And you'll find out about it later. Then you've got to go reanalyze what you built and engineer a better solution. When you're just hooking up things that have already been tested and everybody uses, you can't really mess it up. And if you do, you just go look up the documentation on it of like the best practices and follow those. And you can build software that way. That is, I will say, the easiest and most gratifying way to build software. Well, for most people. Some people really get a lot of engineering their own solutions, but the problem with that is most things have been done before, and you can usually find a tool or some API library to handle it for you, and you can save a lot of time that way. Because if you're engineering your own solution, let's just hypothetically say that it's going to take 3 months for you to develop a piece of something, or a tool to automate your level design or something like that. It's going to take 3 months. Or you could go look at some API that's already built, that's already been well tested, and maybe it's even open source, and you can spend a couple days learning the ins and outs of how to hook everything up, maybe a week at the most, and then you're good. You didn't have to put in all the effort of designing a brand new thing. And 3 months is a lot of time, and it's probably going to be more than that. It just really depends on what you're trying to build. You can build and how big it is, how much help you have, and then it might not even work right, and you might be right back to the drawing board. So that's the reason why you would want to just use other people's tools and just be a software developer or a software designer and not an engineer. Engineers are way more rare. Architects are way more rare. You don't see too many of them, and their pay is much higher. And that's the reason why. It's because they're breaking new ground. Usually when they're designing something, it's because it hasn't been done to the specifications that is needed by whoever wants it, be it the company, be it the person who's developing their own thing. Because if it's already been done, you might as well use what's available to you and save everyone the headache and time. So I hope this answers a lot of questions about those different terms and maybe what you should put on your resume or CV or whatever it is, and how to kind of interpret them, and also to take them with a grain of salt, because sometimes people just put titles up and they don't actually really think about what it means. They're just like, that sounds good. Let's put that there. Maybe they put software engineer when they really want a software developer or a software designer. Developer is kind of vague too, because what kind of software are you developing? That it doesn't really answer that question. If you're just hooking up some APIs and making things work, that's not the same as being able to design new stuff from the ground up successfully. It's way different, and they could both be called software developer. So really, you got to look at people's credentials, what they've completed in the past. If you have questions about it, ask them for other people who have worked on their project and consult with them, because a lot of times you just want somebody that's going to get the job done right. From a company or recruiter standpoint, you want someone that can get the job done. And the greatest way to measure whether someone can do a job or not is if they've done it successfully before. And the only way to find out that is to get references. Not everybody's honest when they're getting hired. People talk themselves up, as they kind of must to get the job sometimes. So as someone doing the hiring, you got to watch out for that, and that makes a lot of people really annoyed. A lot of potential employees annoyed, because they know they can do it, but the person that's going to hire them doesn't necessarily believe that they can, and it's a chance, it's a risk for them. But if you want to prove to the person that might be hiring you that it's not a risk or not a chance, you can give good references and say, hey, contact my whoever and ask them about project X or whatever your project is. project's name is, and that way they can call them, they can verify, and maybe you even want several, because you can. People always do that thing where they're like, hey, look, I'm gonna have this recruiter call you, and they're looking for a reference. Just be a good reference. That happens too. So there's a lot of angles here to look out for with these terms, and it's just something you got to be aware of. And it's not something that's immediately obvious until you're in the field for a while and start seeing how people kind of treat things. It's weird. It's weird. A lot of stuff's weird. All right, that's gonna do it for this video. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and let me know your comments below. Peace out.